Do you guys feel that something is wrong? Zhang Tao asked with a serious expression. He was on the -109th floor of the moon base. Beside him, Lu Ning and Wang Dongdong were holding the food that Zhang Yixia had sent over. They were savoring it carefully. Captain, the food that the aliens cultivate seems to be similar to ours. It's also potatoes, vegetables, and rice. They had flown for more than 3 days from Earth to the moon. All the food that they had was vacuum-packed. The taste was pretty subpar, needless to say. That being said, the food that they were having now was hot and delicious. Wang Dongdong didn't understand what his captain meant when he asked about something being wrong. He asked curiously as he ate, "Captain, did you find anything?" Zhang Tao looked around warily and gestured to the two of them. He whispered as they got their heads close to him, "Did you notice that these aliens are speaking Chinese?" "Ah?" The two of them stopped stuffing food into their mouths, and their eyes revealed surprise. Yeah, why do they speak Chinese? They were used to talking to people who spoke Chinese, so they never realized this issue. However, after Zhang Tao reminded them, the two of them remembered that they were on the moon, inside the base of an alien. Come to think of it, the aliens that they were talking to all spoke Chinese. Also, the man and woman who led us here earlier look very similar to us. They have very standard Asian faces and figures. Don't you guys think this is too much of a coincidence? Other than that, the floor signs in the elevator use Arabic numbers. Zhang Tao continued to list. The decoration style of this house is also very similar to that of Earth. The food, too. We've got potatoes, rice, vegetables. Gulp. Lu Ning gulped and thought of a possibility. Captain, are you saying that we're dreaming right now? It's possible, but I just feel that this moon base is probably linked to Earth. It's as if it was built by Earthlings. Wang Dongdong was a little shocked. Captain, could it be that the aliens have arrived on Earth a long time ago? You know, so they could bring these things to the moon? Lu Ning's eyes lightened up. So, the man and woman who brought us here before could be orphans brought here by real aliens from Earth. They were probably raised from a young age and were indoctrinated to think of themselves as aliens. Zhang Tao nodded slightly. As nonsensical as this theory was, it was still a better explanation than to say that they were all dreaming. He continued, from the looks of it, this moon base is very likely to be used by aliens to communicate with Earthlings. My name is Yao Zhuai Du, and I am a web administrator. I do website maintenance for a small company. Of course, this was my public identity. In secret, I am a hacker who believes in, say, equivalent exchange. Today, 2 amateurs came to me and asked me to hack the same satellite. Awesome. I can get paid double for doing one thing. It's just a satellite. It'll take 3 to 5 minutes, but I can't give it to my clients too quickly. They'll think that they are overpaying me if I do that. So, for now, as usual, I'll play a few games and wait until it's about time I start. It's here. Brothers, look. Ma Haibo was excited as he shared the picture sent by his hacker friend in the online group meeting. He and other members of the association took a long look at this image that they've waited for a long time. The image was plain and unremarkable. It was the surface of the moon. Regular people might enjoy looking at photos like this, but they were from the Extraterrestrial Civilization Exploration Association. They were already sick of all the pictures of the moon that were circulating on the market. Where's White Rabbit 9? One of them stared at the satellite image for a while. Brother Bo, did your friend hack the wrong satellite? That's impossible. He's very skilled at hacking. Ma Haibo hesitated for a bit before contacting his friend again. He then went to ask about the image of the moon. 10 seconds later, he received a reply. The image sent over was the image that was requested. I didn't hack the wrong satellite. This is the satellite you asked for? That's when Ma Haibo realized the problem. He frowned. Where's White Rabbit 9? Could it be that mean and the other countries didn't capture the landing point? Check the coordinates. Coordinates are the same.
Ma Haibo was stunned.
The members who were watching the satellite images with him were also dumbfounded. There's no White Rabbit 9 at the landing point. Could it be? Was the landing really staged? Was all recorded in a recording studio? The atmosphere in the group meeting became very tense. No one spoke for a long time. Ma Haibo was at a loss. He was starting to think that what they were doing was pointless. However, while the others could remain silent, he had to speak. He was the president of the association. Ma Haibo sighed and tried to pull himself together. There are two possibilities. One is that White Rabbit 9 is really filmed in a recording studio. That would explain why the satellite from Mean didn't capture it. The other possibility is that the Great Xia Space Agency was lying about where the landing point of White Rabbit 9 was, so they might have told us the wrong position. Is this really possible? This is the first man-moon landing project. It will go down in history, for sure. Perhaps creating propaganda is more important than actually making the landing. Ma Haibo pursed his lips. No matter which country it was, this was an opportunity to demonstrate strength. How could the space agency hide where the landing point was? Brother Bo, I'm going down. I'm going offline too.
I'm tired.
I'm going to sleep. Bye. One member after another went offline. Many people simply could not accept the possibility that their government had lied to them. After most of the members were gone, Ma Haibo slumped onto the bed and let out a long sigh. Now, whatever the space agency was up to, I just hope that they told us the wrong coordinates. Meanwhile, at the Great Xia Space Agency, all the staff members put down what they were doing and looked up at the big screen. It was showing the images of the Manhwa 14386 satellite transferred from other channels. The screen flashed, showing the lonely scene on the moon. Chief Engineer Yang said, checking the satellite number. It's confirmed to be Manhwa 14386. Checking the coordinates. The coordinates are the same. Chief Engineer Yang quickly turned his head to look at another screen. On it was their own satellite. From another angle, they were recording the landing point. By comparing the images transmitted by the two satellites, they could confirm that they were at the same location. There was no White Rabbit 9. There were no signs of landing. This meant that there was nothing wrong with their satellites. After all, the possibility of two satellites from two countries failing at the same time was close to zero. There was silence in the game. No one spoke, because no one knew what actually happened. In fact, no one knew if the three astronauts were dead or alive. Assistant Little Wong couldn't help but ask, "Boss, the other departments and the General Affairs Office are asking about the situation again. Should we tell them the truth?" Chief Engineer Yang gritted his teeth and said, "Let's wait a little longer. Our near-orbit satellite will arrive in one day. The image will be clearer. We can enlarge it to the centimeter level. We will definitely be able to see something." They still haven't revealed any information. The staff of the television station were having headaches. The manned landing on the moon was supposed to be a historic event, but now, it was becoming the biggest joke in the world at the moment. Forget about those netizens. Even the people working at the space agency felt very uncomfortable when television kept on showing old footage of the previous moon landing attempt. Right now, the entire station was in chaos. Everyone was debating about what their next move should be. No, it's still the same announcement. They are saying that the electromagnetic signal is abnormal. The assistant sighed and shook his head. In just one day, because of this matter, 3 strands of his hair had turned white. The internet is going crazy over this. How can they be so calm? Can anyone give us the reason why this is happening at all? Well, they did say that the latest that they can tell us would be a day later. 1 day later. 1 day later? It's already 2 days away from the moon landing. Sure, we can pause the live broadcast, but what about the astronauts? Are they just going to not do anything for an entire day? The assistant scratched his head. According to the original schedule, the 3 astronauts should be returning in 5 hours, right? Ah. The leader let out a long sigh. He didn't know what to say. These days, many friends had asked about White Rabbit 9, but he did not know any more than those who came to ask him. At this moment, a director rushed over. "Director, there's a situation. What's wrong?" The satellite images of the moon have been exposed online. They have taken a lot of photos of the landing points with satellites. The final verdict? The landing point announced by Great Xia is wrong. Just this evening, an overseas satellite on the moon passed by the White Rabbit 9 landing site and took a lot of photos. The results were shocking. Satellite photos show that White Rabbit 9 is not at the landing point. I actually think the foreign media is very implicit about this. They could have just said that the entire operation is a hoax. It's all a film. Done in a studio. As the photos taken by the Manhwa 14386 satellite were leaked, the internet was in an uproar again. This would go down in history as one of the biggest dramas ever. Almost everyone was convinced that the moon landing was a hoax. The content is inappropriate, cancelled. Just when all the various media outlets were about to make their conclusions about this whole shenanigan, the Great Xia government finally made its move. White Rabbit 9 was manufactured by the Third Aerospace Industry Group of Great Xia after 3 years of preparation. On the day of the launch, reporters and representatives from 144 regions went to the launch site to observe and conduct interviews. They all witnessed the White Rabbit take off. During its flight to the dark side of the moon, White Rabbit 9 received a lot of attention from overseas. It moved past many satellites from other countries and became an internet sensation on multiple social media platforms. Due to the interference of cosmic electromagnetic waves, the live broadcast signal of this manned moon landing has been interrupted. This factor that cannot be controlled. We have urgently mobilized a team of experts to participate in the repair work. If there is any progress, we will announce it as soon as possible. Great Xia didn't directly confront the public opinion and tell them who was right and who was wrong. They only laid out the facts. From the preparation, construction, testing, to the final launch of White Rabbit 9, everything was recorded. Yes, everything that had a record was shown to the public. They couldn't fake it. There was no way that they could fake the interactions between White Rabbit 9 had and the other satellites. Anyhow, all the evidence Great Xia presented proved a point, and that was that White Rabbit 9 had really flown to the moon. There was no filming in the studio. This news immediately made all the Great Xia netizens feel confident once again. People were spreading the news in all sorts of games and applications. Quickly, look at the trending searches. The government just made a statement about the moon landing. I told you, right? Look at the trending searches. The authorities have spoken. Okay, but even if White Rabbit 9 is real, what about the 3 astronauts? Yeah, did White Rabbit 9 crash or something? We have to have an explanation, right? Phew. Chief Engineer Yang let out a deep breath. He was watching the whole time. He was watching as the internet began to show support to the space agency once again. Needless to say, he was deeply touched by what the Great Xia government did for him and his colleagues. Now that the state had confirmed that the moon landing was real, he was finally starting to feel a bit less stressed. Now, to make it even clearer that the moon landing did happen, he needed to find out what happened to White Rabbit 9. After some thought, he took out his phone and dialed a number. Hello, honey. I'm not going back today. I'm staying at the office. If everything goes well, I'll be able to go home tomorrow night. Another day passed. At 2049 on September 23, 2028, the near-orbit satellite of the Mo-3 arrived above the landing site of the White Rabbit 9. At the Xia Space Center, all the staff members had big dark circles under their eyes. They stared at the images transmitted by the Hong-E-3 satellite without even blinking their eyes. The screen was showing a flat piece of land. There were 2 or 3 small rocks and a bunch of dark gray sand. The whole scenery was shown in high resolution. Everything was clear to see.
No.
Chief Engineer Yang's heart sank. Yesterday, a foreign entity called in and questioned them about whether the landing point was right or not. The thing was, this foreign entity knew that the landing point was real. They just had to make sure, since they really didn't see White Rabbit at the scene. Yes. Are there any signs of landing? Again, the landing point was captured in high resolution. Even a grain of sand was clearly visible to them, but Chief Engineer Yang just was not sure. It was the same for the staff members present. Although they could clearly see everything, they each had to check a couple times. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. 10 minutes passed. Finally, one of them couldn't take it anymore. He felt that he had to break the silence by telling the brutal truth. Chief Engineer Yang, there are no signs of landing. White Rabbit 9 has disappeared without a trace. It doesn't have the ability to walk on land. To explore the surface of the moon, you'll need to use the lunar roving vehicle. Assistant Little Wang thought for a long time before speaking. Chief Engineer Yang, is it possible that White Rabbit 9 encountered an emergency and left the moon without receiving our signal? That is possible. Chief Engineer Yang pursed his lips. He wasn't really sure about this. In the past 2 days, He had borrowed all kinds of high-level astronomical telescopes that could be borrowed in the country. He was watching the moon from all the angles he could. He was worried that White Rabbit 9 would somehow disappear forever from the landing site. The result, still, was self-evident. He did not see anything. Seeing that Chief Engineer Yang was becoming absent-minded, Assistant Little Wong had to remind him something. The press is still waiting. What do I tell them? Just tell the truth. The truth? Chief Engineer Yang let out a long sigh. Just say that White Rabbit 9 had gone missing.